Hello everyone. Today we are diving into what is arguably the most energetic, turbulent and revolutionary poem in the English language. Percy Bysshe Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. If you've ever felt like the world was stagnant and needed a violent gust of change to wake it up, you are in Shelley's headspace. Written in 1819 and published in 1820 as part of the Prometheus Unbound collection, this poem isn't just about a change in weather. It is a robust political manifesto, a personal prayer, and a masterclass in poetic structure. Shelley wrote this while living in Florence, Italy. He recounts being in the Cassine woods on a day when the tempestuous west wind was literally tearing the leaves off the trees. But there's a darker backdrop. 1819 was the year of the Peterloo Massacre in England, where cavalry charged into a crowd of protesters. Shelley was grieving, not just for his country's political state, but for the recent death of his young son, William. He felt chained and bowed, and he looked to the wind as a force of pure, unbridled agency. Stanza-wise Summary. The 5 stanzas Shelley organizes the poem into 5 stanzas. Think of these as movements in a symphony, each focusing on a different sphere of existence. The earth. The poem opens with an apostrophe, O wild west wind. Here, the wind is an invisible force driving dead leaves like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. Shelley introduces his central paradox. The wind is both a destroyer, killing the old year, and a preserver, carrying seeds to their dark, wintry bed, where they will wait for spring. It is the cycle of life and death in its most raw form. The sky. The camera tilts upward. The wind is now shaking the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. Shelley uses intense, almost apocalyptic imagery. Here, clouds are compared to the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce maenad. It's chaotic, electric, and suggests that a massive spiritual or political storm is brewing the sea. We move to the water. The wind wakes the Mediterranean from its summer dreams and cleaves the Atlantic into chasms. Even the sapless foliage of the ocean, sourweed, trembles with fear. Note how the wind affects every layer of the natural world. Nothing is exempt from its power. The poet's plea. This is the hinge of the poem. Shelley shifts from thou, the wind, to I. He admits he is no longer the tameless and swift and proud boy he once was. He famously cries out, I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. He is asking the wind to lift him up, to give him back the agency he has lost to time and grief. The prayer for prophecy. The final section is the ask. Shelley doesn't just want to be saved by the wind, he wants to be used by it. He asks the wind to make me thy lyre. He wants his words, his poetry, to be scattered like ashes and sparks from an unextinguished hearth to unawakened earth. He wants his art to become the trumpet of a prophecy. Poetic craftsmanship, the Terza Rima. Now, let's talk about why this poem feels so fast when you read it. Shelley uses a complex structure called Terza Rima, the same interlocking rhyme scheme Dante used in the Divine Comedy. The rhyme scheme follows this pattern: ABA, BCB, CDC, DED, EE. Each stanza is essentially a Terza Rima sonnet, 14 lines. The interlocking nature of the rhymes, where the middle rhyme of one tercet becomes the primary rhyme of the next, creates a sense of forward momentum. It mimics the wind itself, a continuous driving force that doesn't stop until it hits that final emphatic couplet. Notice how Shelley balances the wildness of the wind with the strictness of the form. It is a controlled chaos. Main themes and critical appreciation. The cycle of revolution. The most famous line in the poem is the closing question. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? This isn't just about seasons. Shelley is a political radical. He's saying that even if the current political climate is winter, i.e., oppressive and cold, it is a biological and historical certainty that spring, liberty, will follow. The poet is prophet. In the Romantic tradition, the poet isn't just an entertainer. They are a bridge between the divine nature and the human. Shelley sees himself as a prophet whose task is to wake up a sleeping world. The sublime. This poem is a textbook example of the sublime, the feeling of being overwhelmed by the power and scale of nature. The wind is awesome in the original sense of the word. It inspires both wonder and a healthy amount of terror. Critics often point out that Shelley's Ode to the West Wind marks the peak of high romanticism. Unlike Wordsworth, who often found tranquility in nature, Shelley finds turbulence. What makes this poem timeless is its desperate optimism. Shelley was a man who failed frequently in his personal life and was largely ignored by the public in his time. Yet he had the audacity to believe that his words could drive my dead thoughts over the universe. When you read this poem, don't just look for the metaphors. Listen to the noise of it. It's a poem meant to be read aloud, at a pace that leaves you slightly out of breath, just like someone standing on a ridge in Florence, watching the world catch fire with the change of the seasons. Thank you for joining this lecture. Next time you feel a storm coming, remember Shelley, nature isn't just happening to us, it is a mirror of the revolutions happening within us. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Ciao. Have a great time.